Hello class. Today we are going to be doing a lab on meat and specifically tenderizing meats. We're going to be trying different types of tenderizers to see which ones work best. I bought extra steaks because I wanted to make sure for experimentation purposes all of the steaks were around the same size, which is around 3 to 4 ounces. You can see I'm getting the steaks out. These are round steaks, and if you've ever eaten a round steak, you'll notice that it is very chewy. If you look at these, they're mostly red. There's not a lot of marbling, which is those little streaks of fat that go all throughout. Marbling is one of the things that makes meat tender, and so when you find a real lean meat like this, you have to find a way to tenderize it, or you're going to spend a long time chewing. All right. A lean meat like this is better for you because it has less animal fat, but it is definitely tough. We're going to start by weighing them. The control steak is 3.1 ounces. The mechanically tenderized 3.4. We use a commercial tenderized powder, that's 3.7 ounces. This is the vinegar and salt, 4.4. And finally the pineapple is 4 ounces flat. So when we talk about mechanically tenderizing steak, what we really mean is just poking holes in it, almost tearing at it. We use this thing called a jacquard, which is a bunch of very, very sharp needles that poke out when you stamp down on it. Ouch, ouch, ouch. You do not want to get poked by this. And so when you push it down into the meat, it just tears at the proteins and those proteins that are making it very tough. So it just kind of tears them apart. When you are doing this, you have to make sure the needles actually go through. Sometimes you'll see meat that's already had this done to it. They'll sell it as cubed meat in the store, and what you'll find is really it's a pretty cheap way to get a tender cut of steak, but it also sort of looks like ground beef. It's really just been torn apart. The next treatment is using a commercial meat tenderizer powder, and you're just going to get a little bit of it dry and you sprinkle it onto the meat. My daughter's helping me here. If you look at the ingredients of this, there's some preservatives, but really the main ingredients are salt, which helps draw moisture into meat and hold it there, and bromelain, which is an enzyme that helps digest meat. It helps to soften the proteins and pre-digest the proteins. So bromelain is an enzyme that's found in pineapple, which is one of our later treatments in this lab. This treatment is going to be half a cup of vinegar, which is plain vinegar, and a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. And what you have here is an acid from the vinegar, and the acid helps digest the protein. It helps make it softer and more tender, and the salt again helps draw in moisture. One of the things we're going to be analyzing is moisture loss. You can see here that was a bad way to measure over the thing. I spilled it into there. Bad teacher. But so you're going to mix this in, make sure the salt totally dissolves, and then we're going to marinate the meat in this mixture. And the last treatment is using crushed up or pureed pineapple. And again, this is going to have that same enzyme that we talked about earlier, bromelain, but it's a more natural way to do it. And the benefit of using pineapple also is you have an acid to go along with it. It also helps with tenderizing meat. There's a reason we use fresh pineapple instead of canned. So the reason is because the canning process does kill off the enzyme, the bromelain, which helps with tenderizing the meat. So even though it's a hassle to have to cut up a fresh pineapple like this, that's the only way you really get the benefit of that enzyme. Bromelain is also something you'll see if you buy a digestive aid supplement. So a pill that's advertised to help you digest better. It'll usually have something like bromelain and papain, which is also an enzyme that helps digest, that's found in papaya. It might have another enzyme that's found in kiwi. So we're going to put these in a bag, just a way so that we can get the meat completely covered with the treatment that's going to marinate it. So there's the pineapple, and we're going to do the vinegar, and we're going to do about for 15 minutes. Although if you've ever marinated, sometimes you'll do thicker cuts of meat for longer. You can over marinate something. If you leave it in a marinade too long, it will make the meat mushy. And the goal of tenderizing meat is not to make it mushy, unless you're really old and have no teeth. The point is really to make it more tender, but you still want the structure of the meat to be there. So I really wanted to fit all of these steaks on the same little tray for my toaster oven, and I'm going to work until I make it work. One of the reasons I wanted to cook them all at one time is because I wanted this to be, in the nature of experiment, for them to be cooked in kind of the same way. I also marinated everything at the same time, so I didn't want to leave the tenderizer for a longer time on one of the steaks while I waited for the others to cook, or leave the pineapple a little longer on there than the others. We want to make this as even as possible for all of the experimental ones. I'm going to try to make the edges not touch. We're going to pop it in the oven on broil, which is high heat from above. Here are our steaks. So we'll go in order from the top left. That's our control. We didn't do anything to that one. It's just a plain steak. Mechanically tenderized with the jacquard, the commercial tenderizer powder, the vinegar and salt, and finally the pineapple steak. So we're going to weigh them now. And when you're using a scale like this, you put the plate on it, and then you hit the 0 or the tare button, and now it zeroes the scale to include the weight of the plate. And when you weigh the meats, you'll just get the weight of the meats. So the first one, 2.1 ounces. Second one's kind of slippery. I'm having a hard time. This is the mechanical tenderizer, the jacquard, 2.3 ounces. The commercial tenderizer powder, 2.7 ounces. This is the vinegar and salt, 3 ounces flat. And the last one is the pineapple steak at 2.6. The reason we're weighing them afterwards is to see how much moisture loss happened. You aren't recording that, right?
Yeah, I was.
Oh no, okay. Well, okay, we're going to start. We're gonna start with the one with no treatment on it. So this is no tenderizer.
Number 1.
Okay. Appearance. They all kind of look the same. This isn't particularly beautiful. It's nice and flat, which is good because some of them curled up quite a bit. Juiciness. Well, let's see what we got here. Oh, I can already tell this puppy's pretty dry. Okay, well, I'll take a little piece and see. Wow, oh, very dry. 7, 8, 21 chews. That took me 21 chews to really get that down. The flavor, here, pause it for a second. I'm gonna figure out the flavor, but I need a little salt for this. I need a little bit. I already even tell the flavor without salt. The flavor's fine. It's nothing special, but it's very tough, very dry. All right. Now I'm going to go on to number 2, which was the mechanical tenderizer. That's the jacquard that chopped little tiny holes in it. The appearance of this one's kind of weird. You can kind of look at it. You can tell that it's been punctured. It has kind of a spotty look to it. It also curled up like this. It's not a big deal, but I would say appearance-wise, it's not very nice to look at. And I'm learned my lesson. I'm gonna put a little salt on it right now. Okay, but it actually looks like it's got a little more of the juice. It looks like it. And the last one. It was a little more tender, but it still took me like 22 chews to get through it. So I wouldn't say this is great. Maybe we didn't puncture it enough. I don't know. Flavor's good though. And it does feel like, it does seem to be a little more juicy than the last one. I would say if scale of 1 to 10, no treatment was like a 2 in the juiciness. And this one was probably like a 4, and a little more tender. So now we're gonna go on to the commercial meat tenderizer and see what this one's like. And again, I don't believe this is salted. Let me see. Okay, so this is the commercial meat tenderizer. Doesn't look very juicy. Let's see what we got here. Okay, appearance, it's fine. It's got a nice color to it. None of these have grill marks, which would look nicer. It took about 22 chews as well. I would say this is juicy. This is probably still like a 3 or a 4 on a scale of 10. Not as bad as the control one. It is more tender, and the flavor is the best of the 3. I don't know what's in the tenderizer, but I think that has salt in it already, because that had a much better flavor, and the salt feels like it's more throughout the meat. So we're gonna go on to number 4, the vinegar and salt marinade. I shouldn't have to salt this one. Now already just appearance wise, it might be that this was thicker in the first place, but in general, this steak looks fuller than the other ones do. It looks like it retained a little more moisture. It's more even in its appearance. There's nothing kind of weird about it. Let's see what it tastes like. Not much of the salt in there. Definitely a little bit sour because of the vinegar. It's softer though. That only took me about 15 chews. Okay. It's tender. It falls apart a little more when you chew it. The vinegar and salt made a pretty good marinade. How juicy? I'd say it's like a 5. That seemed to retain more moisture than the other ones did by far. Alright, and what is this? This is pineapple. I'm gonna put a little salt on this. The pineapple one, and once they've been cooked, they look fairly similar. The pineapple one and the vinegar one had a kind of discoloration look when they came out of the marinade. So let's see. It doesn't appear like it did anything. When you cut the pineapple one, I can already tell it has kind of a mealy texture to it, which is kind of weird. The flavor's good. It was about 18 chews. The juiciness was only like a 4. These are not all, any of these are very juicy, I would say. That was like a 4 maybe out of 10. It took about 18 chews, I think. And what else do you need to know? Flavor was good. It didn't hold very much of the pineapple flavor. I did take the pieces of pineapple off of the outside. But overall, yeah, the flavor's good. The texture is a little strange. It's a little mealy. But overall, it's okay. All right. Great. All done. Hopefully you were taping me. That was a long take.
Yeah, I was.
Good.
Yeah.
All right.
What's mealy like?